For my first studio, I used every single penny in my savings. I also then put the machines on a credit card. I put all my chips on the table.
Today's conversation is with Amy Jordan, the founder of Pilates Addiction.
You have to do it scared. If you're not scared, then you probably don't care enough. The brands that are going to win at scale are brands that own their education, they own their equipment, they own their standards, and they own their longevity. We don't hire for people who want to put on a show because it's not a performance. We hire for people who are aligned with helping others feel amazing in their skin. It always comes back to that. There's no reason by statistics and science that we should be sitting here. There's no reason. The survival rate on the cancer I had is single digits. I think there's a misunderstanding about Pilates in general, that it's about stretching and flexibility versus about control and strength with flexibility.
Amy, thank you for joining me. I am in a very sunny California on this podcast tour, and it's amazing to be sat down. You've driven down from LA today.
I have. I'm so happy to be here with you, and the sunshine is just for you.
I know. Well, the sunshine is amazing. We went for a run this morning. We are lapping up the California life.
I love it.
I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if I lived here, what a life I would have. So you created WundaFormer Pilates.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Where did that come from? Was there a problem that you were trying to solve?
Absolutely. So I was actually in entertainment marketing at the time, running huge brands, having a good old time, but just crushing my spirit every day. Not feeling like I was adding to the world or...
Do you know how many people, so I'm ex-marketing, and do you know how many people I talk to who are desperate to leave marketing?
Yes.
It's a job that really is relentless.
It truly is. And it wasn't the life that I saw for myself in the future. The time I didn't have kids, but I knew I wanted to. And I thought, this is not the life and the hours and the experience I want to have as a mother. And so I had started doing Pilates just as a hobby. And I thought, I think I could open a studio. I'll do a little side hustle, open this studio. I did. It was just with other reformers at the time, nothing, particularly groundbreaking, but it lit a passion in me and it lit a fire in me. And I started working with my mentor, MJ Bloom. And she started introducing me to a Wunda chair, to, work on a standing ballet bar, work on, of course, a reformer, but a jump board, things that I didn't have. It was just a reformer. And so I started sketching on a plane to solve this problem because I had a studio and it was fun and it was great. And I loved the clients and the experience, but all I could use was this reformer. So yeah. Beyond the reformer is what I was looking for. Did you hear that?
I know. I like the link into that. Honestly, I went through so many names and then that one came to me and I was like, it's great, isn't it? Because reformer is having this huge boom, which is amazing. It's, I remember when I first started teaching, nobody knew what Pilates even was. But I think what's interesting about, is thinking about how do we bring in more of the method into people and the different
100%.
Pieces of equipment? Because once you've done that, it's incredible.
It's just a totally transformative experience in a whole new way and a whole nother level. And so I knew I wanted to bring these pieces into the clients that I loved. I had 2 studios at the time, but there simply wasn't floor space. There truly wasn't floor space. And primarily we teach in a group format. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting 10, 12 adults to go over to a Wunda chair and fix the cactus and do all the things. It's just not going to happen. So I started sketching on an airplane, just like every trope you would think of, and decided to create this machine. So we launched WundaBar with the WundaFormer. So that includes a reformer, a jump board, a ballet bar, and a Wunda chair all into one. So that's been in existence since 2012. So we have studios in New York, Tennessee, New Jersey, and New York. And in the last year, we've partnered with sequel brands, and so they are now franchising, and we've rebranded into Pilates Addiction, which is this next phase and next era for what WundaBar was and the foundational roots that we built, and really just elevating it, taking it into the next era, the next chapter. And so far, we have over 200 territories sold.
Wow.
That are going to be opening in the very near future. So WundaBar Pilates is sunsetting as a brand with love and appreciation and respect and pride for all the work we've done since 2012, and really just working with this incredible team to help us grow and let it shine in a way that it never has before.
I'm excited to touch more upon that story and where you're going. I'd love, though, to go back. You mentioned your job and you mentioned kind of discovering Pilates. Talk to me about that time in your life. What was going on? How did Pilates make you feel?
It was such a critical space for me, a safe space for me, for my mindset and for my health. So I was going through a difficult breakup at the time, and it was this one place in which I could really feel centered, connected, and the world and the thoughts in my head just stopped and paused and quieted while I was on a machine, while I was moving. It takes such focus and such control, right? The
Yeah.
movement takes such intention. And
I always think it's so interesting how almost everybody talks about that. I feel like that's what makes Pilates so special. There isn't really much else that you would hear people talk about that first and foremost, actually, about how mentally
yes,
it just quietened everything.
absolutely. And that's what happened for me. And it was just this light bulb aha moment of I wasn't feeling fulfilled in a spiritual way, or an
Yeah.
emotional way with my work. I loved my job. I loved the actual work of it, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled or feeling like I was giving anything great to others. And so that's how it really inspired in me, like, hey, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could look at offering this to my hometown. And that's how things got started in my original studio. So it was really this place that emotionally served me and, of course, physically served me because it's a beautiful way to move.
Yeah. Were you working in marketing? Was it around that time that you actually first did Pilates as a client?
Mm-hmm.
What was the journey like then to becoming a teacher and becoming a studio owner? How did you manage that? Because I think so many people are in their careers,
Right.
their proper jobs. Not that
Right.
I still refer to it as my proper job, which is nuts.
It's crazy, right?
But because this is definitely a proper job. But I'm always think it's interesting to hear how people always say, how were you brave enough to make that transition? So how did you do that training? Did you do it alongside your job?
I did. And you know what? You have to do it scared. You have to do it scared. If you're not scared, then you probably don't care enough.
Yeah, so true.
You have to feel that the nerves, the anxiety about it, the worry, and you just have to put it all on the line. For my first studio, I used every single penny in my savings. I also then put the machines on a credit card. Like I put all my chips on the table and didn't.
And how did you have the
plan.
trust to do that in yourself?
I just dug deep and knew that I would solve the problem.
I remember my mum kind of saying to me at one point, like, would your job not take you back? And because I was with a boyfriend and I went through a really bad breakup. And so originally there was like this feeling like, well, I'd have his support. And then suddenly I was literally on my own. And I was like, I just know, like it's just this deep knowing it will be fine.
It's trusting your inner self, right?
Yes.
And believing in it. And there's actually two funny little side stories. So the landlord, I mean, I didn't even know what a commercial lease was. I didn't understand that was a thing.
Yeah.
That's how just naive I was in this market. And the landlord was a little bit baffled by Pilates. Of course, he didn't know what it was. And he and his wife took me to coffee and he said, like, what's your fallback plan if this doesn't work out? And I was like, oh, well, my uncle will come in and financially support, which was not true. I had not talked to my uncle about it. I had not asked him about it. And he said, I see success written on your forehead and I'm going to take a chance on you. And because I didn't own a home at the time. I had no collateral, none.
I think you need those little moments of serendipity, don't you? Or where somebody similar, my first lease, it's the most relaxed lease you've ever seen in your life. We've been there 10 years now.
Handshake.
And I'm not sure I could have ever, my recent studio is one of those much more 10-year commitment, I don't think I could have done that at the beginning. When I see people take those leases out now, I think, are you nuts? Yeah. Like you need someone who kind of takes a bit of a chance on you and,
for sure.
and
but
wants you
have
to succeed.
Be the first one. You have to take a chance on you first before others can take a chance on you.
So true. Yes.
And I did eventually ask my uncle, like, hey, by the way, I brought you up in a lease negotiation. And he was cracking up and he said, you know what? He said, what's the worst case scenario? You get $150,000 into this. It's a lot of money, not trying to pretend it isn't. This is in 2008, 2007, maybe when I was negotiating the lease. And he said, worst case scenario, you close the studio, you go back to work at your big fancy job and you pay it off in a couple of years.
That's what was in my business plan. What happens if it all goes tits up? That's a very English phrase. And it was like, I'll go back to marketing, actually.
Yeah, there's options. You have options. These are solvable problems.
Yeah. Did you go into your teacher training knowing that you were going to open a studio?
I had a pretty good inclination, yeah. And it was a pretty abridged training at that time, and then I took it upon myself to
do more.
more.
Similar to what you said earlier, I had that feeling in marketing where I wasn't with anyone to have children. I wasn't even sure. I kind of knew I wasn't particularly maternal, but I knew that if I didn't have children, I'd regret it.
Yes.
But I used to see the mothers doing that job, and I thought, I don't want that life. And also, I used to feel like if I died tomorrow, like I wasn't doing my work, it wouldn't make any difference.
Right.
And I really wanted to do something that made a difference to people.
It's important to find that purpose and what purpose is. And if this is it, then, carving your own path in this work is really important to serving that purpose.
So you opened your first studio. You said that was, just standard reformers. And then what kind of took you to the place where you're thinking, okay, I want to create my own equipment? Did that come first before you expanded into other locations, or what was that story like?
We had 2 locations with the old machines, and it really was working with MJ. I adore her. She has retired into the Netherlands, which just breaks my heart. But I worked with her. I worked with another mentor, Kendall Pink, and it was that expanding of my mind and of movement and of the functionality of movement and how we can serve others with really helping them to feel better in their body, in their own skin, not only with confidence of course, everyone wants to look great, but it's really truly about how does your body work? How do you feel when you stand up and go upstairs, when you get up off the ground? Can you do all of these things? And so working with them on different apparatuses really opened my eyes to, wow, I can serve in such a different and more robust way if I have more tools at my disposal.
Yeah. So talk to me about those tools.
So, a wounded chair is just this most exciting anti-gravity piece of equipment that I will, without shame, say the first time I tried to do a pike or an upstretch, I couldn't get the pedal off the floor. My brain couldn't wrap itself around the mechanics of it. And so I finally got the pedal up, and it was just game changing. I knew I had to get into that. And the first time I did jump board with MJ, I remember she just made me go and go and go and go. And my shins, I had the worst shin splints because I had lived for over a decade in 4-inch high heels.
That's the marketing life.
That's the marketing life. And I
think that I used to run for trains. And I'd walk 20 minutes to the train, 20 minutes from the train to my office the other end in these insane heels.
Absolutely.
And when I put them on for the Christmas party or something, now I'm like, how did I live like that?
I would walk miles in New York for, conventions, shows, whatever it was. And I had a business professor in undergrad, and she told me, she was this just exquisite Brazilian woman, and she was very tall and elegant. And she said to me once, and I never forgot it, and I took the advice to heart. She said, "You must be eye to eye with the boys." And at that time, certainly even more so than now. And I took that advice to heart, and I wore 4-inch heels every single day of my career. And I was eye to eye with the boys, and I did do very well. So it was good news, bad news, because, now I've had to unwind some of that damage. But the jump board, that experience of being a fit person, being someone who was already teaching Pilates on a reformer, the intense understanding of the dysfunction of one of my, body parts was really eye-opening and just really helpful for me to understand that this is another really powerful tool to help people find better function in their bodies.
So you've got 2 studios. You're seeing the power of the different pieces of equipment. What then makes you think, are you a creative at heart to think, what brings you to be an innovator and think, I'm going to create something that doesn't exist? And there's one thing having the idea, Amy, but also how does one take that to fruition? And, how do we find someone to build it? That is an insane...
It's a pretty intense process.
Yeah.
But the answer is you just have to start, right? So it starts with a sketch, and sure, that could be an idea sitting on a shelf, right? But that doesn't serve you or anyone else. I didn't know anything about inventing equipment. I didn't know anything about patenting. I didn't know anything about mechanical engineers, none of it. So I just started asking. I asked my business manager, hey, do you know anyone? I went and saw that person. They weren't the right fit. They sent me to another manufacturer. I didn't have an engineer. I started with a friend of a friend who was overseas. That work was not wasted, but we didn't use any of it, but it at least got drawings that I could present to this manufacturer. And then they took it on almost like, oh, isn't she cute? Is the sense that I got from them. I was pregnant, with my son, and I walked into this factory in 4-inch heels.
So you're eye to eye with the men. I like it.
And they were like, what do you want us to build? Because they do like industrial equipment. They don't do Pilates certainly at all. So they took it on just, I think, as a fun little side project. And it's here in Southern California. And they built the first prototype the week my son was born. It came off the factory floor. So right before he was born, I'm pregnant as a house, testing the machine. The chair pedal wouldn't come up off the ground because they had made it out of solid steel arms. So you'd hook up the springs and it would just go settle down on the ground. So there was no recoil. So, and that's okay. And that's what we did our first training on. We took that prototype to MJ's studio and we used her like traditional machine basically next to it because the reformer portion worked, the jump board portion worked. It was just the chair that didn't. So we did the training kind of on a hybrid of machines. So it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be perfect. And if you just keep going and meet each challenge with the next best decision you can make and just keep going.
I mean, fair play doing that generally, but then heavily pregnant. Like you said, it's not like it just comes off and it's like, ta-da. It's actually like, no, now the work starts.
No.
It needs finessing, it needs testing.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been full on.
The jump board was literally, it's the material I believe is called Delrin. And it's like basically a super like dense and thick plastic. It looked like a cutting board. It was ridiculous. And then we did one more prototype where the pedal worked. And that second prototype, so before we're even anywhere close to a studio, we still don't have a great working prototype, but it's working. That lived in my living room, and my son learned to walk around that machine the way they would usually around a coffee table. He learned to walk around that machine because that's what life was. And we didn't have a home that was large enough to have a separate room for this machine. So it was just, we took out the coffee table and put in the WundaFormer. My dad's a carpenter. He was coming in with like, pieces of wood to try to like, refine and basically give templates or models to the engineers. I worked with, multiple engineers, multiple prototypes. And then we opened our first store as my third studio. We did a pop-up in an old hair salon where the machines were like this. There was no mirrors and it was just a pop-up so we could learn how to teach on it.
Okay.
Because sure, we knew how to teach Pilates, but how do you do a flow?
Yes.
When you have 4 apparatus, because normally you're teaching a jump board class, or you're teaching a chair class, or you're teaching a reformer flow, or you're teaching a bar class. How do we intertwine these? And that was something no one, not even me, had ever done. So we had to figure out how we're going to teach this. So we did a pop-up studio first. We did a lot of, training and testing in that room. And then we opened the store with the WundaFormers. And again, they're still essentially at that point working prototypes, right? It's the first run.
What gives you the focus to stick with that? Because that's a lot.
It really is a lot, but it's that purpose, right? Of I want to serve people better. And I knew that this equipment was a way to serve people better. And that's how we got to the point of choosing to expand into Pilates Addiction, because my passion and my purpose is not in a massive scale, right? We have 11 studios, pretty great, pretty fantastic. We have thousands and thousands of clients, but to scale at that, 200 stores in the first year level is not where my passion lies. And that's where my partner's passion lies. And that's where the synergies come in. And that's where the beauty comes in, where we can then serve the original purpose of how many people can I serve to feel amazing in their own skin. And this is now a vehicle in a way to do that as Pilates Addiction.
Talk to me, if you will, about scaling, even initially the 11 studios were your studios as such at this point. How does one do that? How do you keep that consistency, get the right teaching staff? In my experience, it's actually getting the right management staff is really tricky. Mm-hmm. How do you do that and stay sane?
We had started to franchise and just kind of like dip our toe in that water. So 2 of the studios are franchisees, but in general, we've opened the most corporate stores. And so what's critical to me is alignment in the vision and in that purpose, right? Because skills are trainable. You can teach people to teach, you can teach people to manage, you can teach people all these skill sets, but you can't teach someone who's not bought into the method or to the approach of what you're doing. You can't teach that into someone. So I've had it happen on more than one occasion where I've hired someone based on their resume or on their skill set, instead of really making sure they're bought in to what it is we're doing here. And that becomes the most expensive hire you'll ever make. Right? So it's much more important to find that alignment and then work on the consistency of the training. So that the values, right? The vision and owning that is how you scale. You have the brands that are going to win at scale are brands that own their education, they own their equipment, they own their standards, and they own their longevity. Those are the critical pieces in order to scale into something that's really massive.
When you sit down with someone, how do you judge? Like, what kind of questions do you ask them to try and figure out if they are aligned with that same vision and identity? I think when I was recruiting teachers for a long time, I didn't find this too tricky. I could feel from them
Yes.
if they believed in what I believed. And I'm with you, you can teach the skills maybe they don't quite have yet. But sometimes I think with some of the more central teams of the studio, it can be harder to really, they're not often Pilates teachers, or maybe they are. Like, I was talking to a studio owner recently and she was saying, my marketing manager is ex-client. And, you have to have people who really are bought into Pilates. But I'm interested, how have you done that across those studios?
One of my favorite ways to do this is to have them take my class first. And that is such a great energy read. And you teach Pilates, you can see it on their face if they're bought in, if they're listening, if they're wanting to get the most out of it, if they're enjoying themselves, if they're working hard. That is critical. And that is such a raw space of energy. Teaching comes from a very raw and creative place for me. And I think when you're in a class, if you're willing to give up pretenses or give up expectations and just really go with, what the movement is and how your body is on a given day, that speaks volumes of, are you going to get on board with what we're doing here? Because it is such a raw emotional and physical experience.
It's so interesting to hear you say that, Amy, because it's not a tangible thing, it's a sense.
No.
And that's hard sometimes, isn't it, to really have that sense of somebody and get it right. I remember Rachel, who's behind the camera here, she's with us on this tour, the studio manager at my studio. I met her and just immediately we just had this feeling, but it's sometimes hard to get that.
It really is hard.
You have to go through quite a few people.
And it's hard to find at scale too, right? Because I'm not hiring.
Well, this is it. As you do it now and they're in different locations, that's the challenge, isn't it?
It is. And it's the great leadership that I am blessed to have working with me. It's these incredible leaders that are running East Coast and West Coast is the way we have it set up right now. And these two women, Blake and Anne Marie, they absolutely understand the vision, absolutely drunk the Kool-Aid. One of them teaches, one of them does not. But they understand what it is we're doing here. They're passionate about it. And it's critically important that the people you have in the position of hiring and of, really leading the culture in their, respective stores, they have to buy into it so that then that continues through who they choose to hire, what they're seeing in the studios, what that culture is that you've created, and making sure that we keep that true and aligned together.
So having the knowledge that you have now of opening those studios and what's to come, if you were to open your first studio again today, would you do anything different?
I would encourage myself to slow down. I put so much undue pressure on myself as a brand new mother, of scaling quickly and being this big brand quickly and being, and all of these things. I wanted to grow and grow and grow. And that was so important. And it was a lesson that MJ taught me. I won't pretend to do a Dutch accent. I would like to, but I'm terrible at it. But she said to me once when I was literally in tears on her machine, I think I was pregnant with my daughter. So the studios had been open for a year and a half or so. And I was lamenting that we didn't have a million stores already. And her message to me was that, like, strong, beautiful trees must have very deep roots. And it was like, okay, I understand. But that's something that I would encourage anyone starting to build those roots and build that depth of character and quality in how you are as a leader, as well as in who you're bringing on to grow with you.
And I think if it's a good idea, it's a good idea tomorrow or next week. I am terrible. It sounds like you are too. I have an idea and I want it already done. And that is what gives you the drive, for sure. But it also is what absolutely causes burnout and illness. And you have to kind of, I sometimes hear myself preaching to my clients and thinking, I really should listen to this advice myself.
Right. And I would also, something that I've learned just within the last few years when I've hired a CEO coach for myself, is that there's no prize for doing it all. You don't have to do it all. Like, I now barely touch email. I now certainly don't touch my calendar. At this point, I teach 2 days a week. and yet we have all of these stores running. And it's really about, what is that one thing that you can do that no one else can do? What is that one thing? And so for me, it really is about innovation and creativity, not only in the equipment and the patents that I have, but also in the way that we move and how we approach movement with these tools.
Well, talk me through that, because as you said, you've now got a format that has this piece of equipment that does so much. So how do you approach that class planning? What is the structure like for that?
So we have a really robust and just highly curated training program. So we started with a 350-page paper binder with photos and words. It was wild, right? Then in 2018, we really converted into the digital age. And we launched our first digital training program. We still do in person, of course, but this is kind of that coursework ahead of time. And now with the scaling into Pilates Addiction, we've just refreshed it. And now someone that's worked with me for almost a decade, Liza, she is running that with the sequel team and really curating that foundational, anatomically driven, function driven, training, so that now you have the tools in your toolbox to teach whatever class you want. So we don't pre-prescribe. I find that it's far more interesting for the clients and for the team members to create their own routines. We do have requirements that it has to move in the 7 planes of movement, and it has to move around the machine, and every piece part has to be touched and utilized. We like to think of it as a flow around the machine, like a big circle or like a figure 8 even, so there's ways that we have of approaching it. Of course, we provide sample routines for people who are new and need to understand how that works. But something that I do and I encourage my team to do is to always look at who you have in front of you.
Well, I was thinking to myself, when you talked about how you recruit and you sense the energy, my studio is called Soul Pilates. Like it's very much about feeling the people who are there and giving them what they need, what they want. And if you're too prescriptive, you can't do that. But of course, it's great. It takes time to be able to do that in confidence and presence.
Yes.
So yes, having some example routines, but it's nice to be able to give people a framework that has some freedom in it for them to bring their own personality across. And also, I imagine, to have the ability to read the room.
100%. And one of the skill sets that we do, like literally train into the team, is that you want to start with one move that's like right down the middle. A squat, a plank, something that's like a push-up, something that's just like very straight down the middle. It's not highly complicated choreography. And then you immediately know who you're dealing with, what is going to be a challenge or not, what is going, okay, I need to dial it up a little bit. Okay, I need to focus on fundamentals, whatever it is. But that read, that tell at the beginning of class is going to give you so much information so that you can show up for the clients where they're at on any given day.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do you ensure that, teachers can have creativity without it turning into a performance? But actually, I guess that's how.
That is how, yes.
You can then read the clients and you can work with them where they're at, as opposed to taking them to a level that's just not appropriate for them.
And this is where the alignment comes in of who you're hiring. Because we don't hire for people who want to put on a show, because it's not a performance. We hire for people who are aligned with helping others feel amazing in their skin. It always comes back to that. Are you here to serve the clients? And we even have an approach that we focus on in the way we teach, because it is a group, right? So we talk about bringing the floor to the client. So this is props like a moon box, props like a wedge, props like posture pillows, things that bring the floor to the client if they can't get down to the floor, theoretically, so that we're serving and supporting them wherever they're at that day.
So where does the style of your teaching, is it, if you were to sort of say rooted in the method to a more athletic space, somewhere in the middle, or does it depend on who's being taught?
It really is that juxtaposition of both. We are, highly foundational, but are we doing hundreds in every class and footwork? No. But foundational ideas of that movement and the anatomy, but also in an energetic environment. But it's not hard for hard's sake. I feel like when you lean too far into the athletic version of Pilates, I should say, it's about being hard, and it's about this like badge of honor that my class is the hardest. Like, well, why is it hard? What's it hard for? Because it's about the intention and the quality of the movement to make it hard, but we do move at a pace in which you're sweating. It's cardio intense. It's a flow versus a pre-prescribed,
Yes.
list of exercises that you're ticking off. We really do want it to feel like a circle or a figure.
And I think that's a really interesting space to be, because I think that need for more of a flow, more of a workout is great. Just teach it with some depth.
Yes, and with intent.
And that's really special, actually.
And teaching up and down too.
Yeah.
And because, right, you've got 10 people and 3 are Olympians and, 3 are pregnant and 3 are coming back from injury or never done Pilates before. So we also are really intentional about, we call it teaching baseline, and then we teach down or up.
Yeah.
If you want more challenge, do this. If you want to dial it down, do this. But start somewhere in that mid lane, and then everyone is served to the level that they're at.
So talk to me about, I'm thinking about your innovation and your equipment, but I know you didn't just stop with your reformer chair, jump board, combo bar.
I am an artist at heart.
And I love this. And so you kindly brought me a lovely gift, and you've got some, innovative props for at-home use. Was that important to you? Was it important that, is it your clients that are doing this work at home, or has it spread kind of beyond that? Talk to me about that process of taking stuff, changing even the props.
Yes. So it's definitely beyond the client base. Yes, absolutely. They have them at home too, but it's a worldwide experience now. And I kind of feel like my specialty in what I'm creating and what I'm innovating on is taking what is great and making it even better, right? So all of the pieces of equipment were great, but they're better together, and it creates a seamless flow for the workout that, people in the modern age want. And with the circle ring, it was a tool that everyone hated. And not just because, oh, it's so hard, I hate it. No, it pops out of your legs.
Yeah.
And as a studio owner, I hated it because it looks like garbage after 3 uses. This, the spongy like handles, they start to disintegrate. The text rubs off. They just weren't functional. Like, it's not a great alignment to put it between your ankles. Like, it's getting things, outbound. And if that's what you're doing all the time, that's fine for some movements, of course, but on a repetitive way, no, thank you. I'm looking for alignment. So when they walk up the stairs, they're feeling better and functioning better. So that's when I came up with the resistance ring. So it's this hourglass shape, because then it is far more functional and it connects your legs to your core in every single move you're doing.
I'm excited to try it.
It's wild. And it goes in so many different positions. The narrow way, it goes between your inner thighs, gets your knees aligned with your hips and your ankles.
Where does the inspiration for something like that come from? And the other props that you've created as well.
I see so many people using it, and particularly petite clients, like they couldn't even do what I was asking for, right? And then the expansion into online workouts. So I have on my Amy Jordan official YouTube channel, I have hundreds of free workouts that, are included for anyone who wants to work out worldwide. But even doing live Zooms over the years that we've had to do live Zooms, I would be looking in the camera like, oh God, that alignment isn't right. And I'm trying to fine tune it over the internet. The resistance ring just dials it in. It dials the alignment in. So you don't even need my hands on you. You can really do it. And frankly, it makes my job a lot easier in a room of 10 or 12 clients, because I'm like, put your window core there and boom, boom, boom. The whole row of clients are just aligned. It doesn't have any pads that wear out. So as a studio owner, you don't have to, replace it all the time. And it's just been a really fantastic way for me to connect with people in different studios. I've just this last year launched the curved blocks. So again, taking something that's been around for millennia, a square block, and actually making it functional, where I'm sure you hear this from your clients. Oh, my wrist hurts for plank. My wrist hurts. My wrist hurts. A, we need better mid-back connection. And B, one of the ways you can find this is by the block has a curve over the top of it, opening the wrist and connecting the weight to the entire palm rather than just the heel of your hand. It drives the work straight into the middle back, shoulders, core. We stand on it. So then your feet open up, unwinding what we have in shoes. And that's the gateway to the medial line to your core. So creating these tools in a way that then kind of make it a no-brainer to find the core connection from parts of your body that you don't think are connected to your core. And then, of course, it adds balance challenge, and we flip them so the rocking sides down, and then you're doing bridges with the rocking, pattern underneath your feet. So it's a pretty cool way of approaching movement with tools that help you find the connection we're looking for without a teacher's hands there.
When did the online part of your studio, I suppose,
Mhm.
come into existence? You know, have you always had that online presence and helping people in their homes? What's the ethos of that? Because obviously in the studios, you've got this really cool piece of equipment.
Right.
What are clients doing at home? And what's the discoverability like? How are they finding you? And what's kind of making them come to work with you?
So certainly, like big brand collaborations are always helpful. Like I've done videos with Livestrong and Shape and all these other, companies. We did launch videos online the first time in 2018, right? When we came into the digital age. And then we had kind of revamped it right before, all the shutdown happened. So it was a way of me again wanting to serve more people in the world. And I've since had, we work with people all over the world and have people come up to me, like even in Greece, a woman came up to me in the shop and knew who I was, and she, was just incredibly, sharing some of her personal journey and things that I had helped her heal from videos, and never even knowing that I was creating impact. But talk about purpose when you're impacting, and I'm helping a young woman in Greece and I didn't even know she was working out with me.
How are people finding you? Are they finding you through, because you're a prolific content creator?
Mhm.
Is that important to you to do that and to get that discoverability out there?
It is because it's, in this time,
Yeah.
that's one really great way for people to find you. And even being on podcasts to say, like, follow me, Amy Jordan Official. Like, then people hear about it through podcast, through stages, through reputation, through being in, magazine articles, and just being out in the world. I did a collaboration with MasterCard at the Grove and, just meeting new people out in the world, coming to conventions, having features, all of that is part of the outreach.
How does one elevate their profile to the point where they can get those collaborations?
Mhm. I really think it is innovation. You have to stand out, right? We're marketers. You have to stand out. And so if you have ideas of how you're going to be different, and not just like slightly different, it really has to be as a story that a brand can tell. And you truly are going to benefit if you're also willing to be authentic and raw with your story. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I had cancer in 2020 during COVID. It was a real good time. Kids at homeschool, businesses closed, and being willing to share that journey and look at how movement heals you even in a health crisis.
Mm.
You never see movement professionals in a health crisis. They kind of go into the shadows while they're, you know, attending to their health. And it was really important to me to share that journey and show that, like, yes, even though I am one of these, personalities in the Pilates world that people, see and, hopefully are inspired by, this was a way for me to be very real. And that created a lot of opportunities where people wanted to, feature my profile or share the story because it was such a unique way of dealing with something that was awful,
Mm.
but I was trying to make the best of it that I could and serve and show up for others who are also in healing crises.
So, in your experience, you're creating innovative content, you're being very vulnerable online and
Mm.
showing your true story,
Mm.
all of the sides of it. Are those brands and those collaborations coming to you, or are you also kind of working the PR machine and going to them?
A little bit of both. It
Mm.
depends. So now I have an agent that helps me, my dear friend Krista. So she, helps me with these brand collaborations. In general, they're incoming because my focus is not, always on outward bound facing things, but it's all in service of helping as many people as I can.
I love that. Is doing at home workouts important to you? Do you think that's what people out there need to be doing more of?
I think that moving is critical every day,
Every day.
whatever it is. My personal choice is Pilates, right? So that's where I like it. But if you're moving every day, it's absolutely critical. And that's why we talked about before. That's why I am now developing a home machine that is going to be truly, truly revolutionary, truly industry disrupting. And we're going to be launching that in 2026. So
This is so
stay
exciting.
tuned.
Well, it's funny because I have so wanted a reformer at home for ages. In the UK, houses are quite small and,
Mhm.
small rooms. We don't have enough room for one. I've just got a chair for home. I'm very excited about this. And I think it is really nice to think about, to bring that in, you know, the sort of innovation that you have, and think about how can we do things differently. So it's going to be really exciting to see that.
I'm so excited about it, and I can tell you too that this is another invention. So I've had a habit of having sketches, even sculptures of inventions that sit on paper because I was so busy staying in my inbox, staying in the weeds of my studios. And only with this, kind of current evolution I'm in to really show up as the leader, focusing on what I focus on. That's how I'm like kind of rapid fire releasing innovation after innovation. I also just launched the Flex Barrel that's going to be at all the Pilates Addiction studios. It turns a chair into essentially a ladder barrel. It's crazy. And then we also are going to use it as a long box and a sitting box on the machine. It's fantastic.
When you were in your marketing role, I mean, is creativity been part of your life?
Absolutely.
Always.
So my undergrad is in art.
Okay.
And then I have a master's in marketing.
Yeah.
So those two work really well together to not only sketch and ideate, but then execute and launch. And so those are two really powerful skill sets that I have and trainings that I have. But this idea of taking these ideas off of paper and bringing them into the world is really where I'm focused on right now, because oftentimes someone who's working out at home is not someone who either enjoys a studio experience, who isn't close enough to a studio, because even as we open hundreds, if not thousands of Pilates Addiction locations, there will still be millions upon millions of people who are nowhere near a studio. They live in a rural area, they live in a part of the country that we haven't opened in, whatever the case may be. Maybe they're a caregiver for someone in their life, and it's not a possibility for them to leave. So that's another reason why I'm creating this home machine. So you can basically then have the option like, oh, I would really want a reformer or a chair in my home instead of just the mat. The mat is so foundational. I always like to say it's like you, baby Jesus, and the mat. Like that's all you got. So it's
Well, I brought my mat with me.
right.
My really lightweight travel mat. I mean, mat is so accessible. You can do it anywhere. You can dial it down when you're like, I've been on a 12-hour flight, everything hurts. I just need to do lots of twisty, stretchy stuff.
Yes.
I'm going to really work my body a bit today. And I just love that. I mean, I think that's why I've loved Pilates.
Yes.
I love it can meet you wherever you're at.
That's exactly right.
But I think to have a piece of equipment that can seamlessly fit into your home would be amazing, actually.
Well, like we were talking about, right? So Joseph Pilates created the Wounded chair to quite literally be a chair in his New York apartment.
Well, this is why, because I heard this from a guest on the podcast. I was like, I should have one of those. Why? Of course.
I mean,
and you sort of forget how powerful, like you mentioned, the chair is actually. So now, your Pilates Addiction, you're expanding. What has that journey been like, and what's brought you to the place where you're thinking of expanding this big? And as I'm not surprised you've had to shift your role and have some, I mean, I'm kind of at that, not to the same level, but thinking actually there is some coaching often that's needed to shift your role.
Yes.
And be like, I don't know how to be in this new role. I've never been in this new role.
Right.
So you've done that now. You've got all these new studios coming. Talk to me about that. How's that going to happen? Is that through franchising?
Yes. So that is through franchising. And I'm working with Anthony and Sarah at Sequel Brands, and they have a track record and a history of taking, brands from, 10 stores, 20 stores to thousands of stores. And so it's about choosing the right partner. I've had, I don't even know how many people come to me over the years and want to either buy Wundabar or be a partner with me in expansion. And this was the right duo, and with their team, of course. But I knew that these were the right people. And it's just trusting that inner knowing and trusting the timing of it. I'm so proud of the work I've done. I am just in love with my clients, in love with the work that we have done together since 2012. But it is time for this new chapter. It's time to elevate. It's time to take things forward. And just trusting that and knowing that is so important. And working with partners who value what has been done. And so there's a lot of intention and effort going behind holding those standards, holding our values, and making sure they're repeatable, right? So refilming the teacher training, very intense, operations, playbooks of how a studio is run and what our ethos is and what our culture is, because culture isn't words, right? Culture is the reward for the work you do and the standards you hold, right? And it's the language you use, it's the energy that the studios carry. That's how you're going to scale, and that's how you're going to win. And we do own the education, we do own the equipment, we do own all of the pieces that are going to allow us to scale without watering down the beauty of what we're doing here.
Do you ever worry when you look at that franchise model of who will take on those franchises, and will it in any way not be quite what you envisioned the brand to be? Or do you feel, because you've done the work of creating, A, how you select those people, I imagine, and B, the work that's gone into the materials, do you feel confidence in that? Because I get asked this a lot, would you ever franchise? And I think, I don't know. It's probably a little bit about like my need for control. And I
Which
guess
you have to release.
you do, yeah.
If you want to scale at this level, you have to release that control. And certainly in my role, where I have, allowed sequel brands now to run this, I've had to let go and hold on to the pieces that do matter to me. So I was involved in the teacher training with Liza and developing that program so that we can put, frameworks in with freedom for the educator team. There's going to be thousands of them. So that's really important that the foundational elements, that the WundaFormer is now gold. Oh my God, she's beautiful. The WundaFormer Orem series is this machine that's in place. And the movement that we do on that is rock solid. And the rest of it, branding is super important. We're marketers, but that is less important to me than the foundation of what we're moving on and how we're moving and the intention behind the movement. I can tell you this from the first, 200 franchisees I met in Miami at our convention. We've done a bang up job of selecting really dynamic people who are aligned with the vision. So far, so good.
Do you sit at home and think back to the first day, you had this idea and think,
Don't make
how
me
is
cry.
I mean, it's
On camera.
absolutely insane, because it's not just a studio. I mean, like you said, it's the invention, it's the product, it's the education. I mean, that's
a movement.
and that's all you.
Yeah.
And that's very different. But also, it's not so different that you've left the field of Pilates, it feels like.
And it's with, authentic respect for the foundational movement and the traditional work that is done. It's with the utmost respect, but I also don't hold it preciously, right? So I also have taken it into what I consider the future. It's a pretty incredible thing to look back at the coffee table WundaFormer, or at one point we literally had to scrap the engineer we were using, and we went out 2 hours outside of LA to this bizarre little desert, not even a town. It was like a machine shop in a desert. Just these really wild steps along the way, and transitioning into owning studios in New York, 3,000 miles away, and letting go of control and trusting that team. And it really has been a process of growth for myself as a human and as a leader and as a mother, modeling what is possible, modeling loving your work, modeling growing without burning yourself out and grinding, growing with other incredible like-minded humans who are aligned with the vision, and being able to show up for your kids in the plays that for some unknown reason are at 11:30 on a Tuesday.
I think that all the time. Can you imagine being in your old job? You either wouldn't make it, you'd be so stressed out, you'd end up with a shitty conversation with a boss about your commitment. I think that all the time, because running your own businesses, there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of almost never being off feeling. However, I love it for many reasons, but I also love it exactly for that reason. It's like I can shift things and off we go to the 11 a.m. Christmas song
on Tuesday,
on
right?
a Tuesday.
And I've learned about really holding better boundaries for myself. I used to believe that boundaries were for others, and I finally now understand that boundaries are for myself. And part of that is my phone being silent and plugged in the other room when I am making dinner or doing whatever it is with my kids. We take walks very often, and the phone stays at home. And building those boundaries that none of this is an emergency, my friends. It is, I can count on one hand the actual emergencies that have happened inside of a studio, of all of these studios in all of these years in all of these cities.
What happens though? So, in New York, I don't know, there's a leak or something. I always think about this when I think about opening studios further away from me. And I think, I have got people to call on, but sometimes they're not available. And, I'm like, don't worry, I'll get in the car, off I go and do it. How do you get around that in your head when you're 3,000 miles away?
It was a process, for sure.
Okay, that's good to know.
And it truly has been building just incredible teams and who take ownership because they are so aligned with the vision. They take ownership in it. Even in Los Angeles, my team almost entirely handles leaks, AV system going down, spring breaking, whatever it is. They handle, I would say, 98% of what goes wrong. And if I can be helpful, I'm very happy to jump in, but it also is allowing them the autonomy and the empowerment to solve problems. I'm not the only one who can solve problems, and I kind of used to believe that. I'm a little embarrassed to say, but
Yeah.
I used to believe that, oh, I'm the only one who can come in and save this client communication. I'm the only one who can come in and fix this or do that.
And that's not true.
It's not true at all.
Someone said to me recently, sometimes you have to climb the mountain, and before you try and climb another mountain, you have to stop and look around and survey what you've done. Or are you the sort of person who's like, I've climbed a mountain, what's next? Let's do the next mountain.
Learning.
Do you find, yeah, me too. That's why I'm asking. Recently, I was thinking about, the ability to feel pride for your work, not just pride in your head, but like feel it and be able to go, wow, and not try and be like, okay,
You're
what's
just
next?
trying to make me cry on camera is what I think is happening here.
Well, I just think your story, genuinely is an immense story.
It's been a wild, and just I'm so blessed with, things that have gone right. And yes, I've worked hard.
And also to hear your story about your health as well, like in the middle of
Miracles, like straight up miracles. There's no reason by statistics and science that we should be sitting here. There's no reason. The survival rate on the cancer I had is single digits.
Wow.
So there is literally no statistical reason we should be sitting here. So miracles, blessings abound, 100%. And I feel like in the past, I was absolutely next mountain, next mountain, next mountain, next mountain. And that spoke to, sorry, that spoke to me not having enough self-worth
Yeah.
and valuing myself enough. And I'm in an evolution and in a journey of finding that. And some of these critical moments of, launching Pilates Addiction and seeing that happening and literally signing an agreement in which I'm not giving away, I'm selling my IP and my, branding rights. This is a powerful moment in which we look back.
Yeah.
And I was with my kids in New York City.
How old are the kids now?
They are 12 and 14,
Wow.
almost 15.
That's a lovely age for them to really take that in with you.
They were 11 and 13 at the time. This happened last winter. And we were on just a family trip to New York, and we're in this, high spot in our hotel room. And we could see from the hotel room 2 studios. I had sent up a little champagne for me, a little orange juice for them, and we cheersed. And it was just such a powerful moment of reflecting on what it took to get there and how important it is for me that my children see that, and what a powerful part of motivation they served as for this journey. And it was just an incredible moment to look back and see what it took to get here.
Yeah. So you didn't stand at the mountain, but you did stand in a skyscraper. I like this. I can probably work with that more with a glass of champagne.
Yes,
I like that. We can work with that.
So good.
But it's
So
just, I
powerful.
think what you've done is incredible. And I think, there is definitely, if you don't have that continuously climb the mountain mentality, you wouldn't be where you are.
No.
But I imagine as well, like, what you went through with your health, and there's various things, aren't they? They do make you take stock and you say, okay, I can probably still have a similar drive, but boundaries, like you said, phones and space. And, I was just saying the other day, actually, I think the word, whenever for years, the word I always think of, like, what do I want out of my life? Always space.
Yes.
And then I find space and I fill it.
Yes.
So I'm like, no, I've got to listen.
I'm after freedom.
Freedom
In spirit, freedom in time,
Yeah.
freedom in resources. And that's a really important vision for me to have, freedom just in life in general.
We always end our conversations with some quick or quickish fire questions. What is your favorite Pilates exercise and why, Amy?
I'm going to say upstretch or pike on the Wunda chair.
Yes, you mentioned that earlier, and I think I love that.
I love that one. It's so powerful. It connects your whole body. And it also is this anti-gravity move where it's also playful and joyful, where you're basically like, on your way to a handstand. And I really enjoy that, and just the control it takes and the intention it takes Otherwise, you're just riding the springs.
Whenever I'm doing my mat workouts in the morning, I'm remembering what lots of people told me. They're normally mat exercises, but now I've got my new chair coming, Amy. I will be thinking of you every
So
time I'm doing an upstretch.
exciting.
And a habit that sustains your energy, because oh my goodness, you have so much energy. Do you have a habit that helps you keep that balanced?
I do. I have quite a few habits that help me keep that balance. I start my mornings with like lemon, olive oil, like elixir in the morning before coffee, before anything else. I start my day with water every morning. And I feel like that really is an important way to kind of clear things out and get yourself going. Eating as many foods as I can from the ground, from earth with as few ingredients as possible, because when I steer out of that, I have less energy. I don't feel as great, and moving every day. It's critical.
And what does moving look like? Do you have lots of different types of movement that you like to do?
It's primarily Pilates, of course, the stand for Pilates.
For me too, actually. I think if all else
my
fails,
favorite.
it's just
Yeah,
what I do. And it was the thing that I did that just made me feel so good and still does.
every time.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing Pilates, it's going to be, walking, hiking, swimming. Those are my other go-tos.
I love that. Is there one thing that you think people misunderstand about your method?
I think that they might misunderstand that it's about stretching. I think there's a misunderstanding about Pilates in general, that it's about stretching and flexibility versus about control and strength with flexibility.
What excites you about the future of Pilates?
New inventions and new ideas that are not only going to come from me. Certainly that's exciting for my own personal path, but I'm excited to see what others have to bring to the table, because I certainly don't have all the answers.
Was there a decision early on that changed the direction of your brand, of your life?
Yes. So early days, we used to do what we would call at that time the Best Body Challenge. And it was a time in this industry when it was very outside in, and it was very six-packy, before and after photos, numbers on the scale, numbers on a measuring tape. And we used to do that because that's what, was in the industry. And this was in my original studios, not at Wunderbar. And launching Wunderbar, I decided that we would only focus inside out. And we have never, ever done anything of the sort of a Best Body Challenge
Right.
or a weigh-in or a measuring tape, because it's so much more powerful to start on the inside. And then sure, your outside looks great, but
That's the easy bit, actually.
that is the easy.
I say this all the time to people.
100%.
The strength and tone is actually very easy, but the mindfulness, the feeling, the sensing, that's hard to teach. It's hard to feel, but it's what changes lives.
It's
I
what
think.
changes lives. And it also created a safe space in which everyone felt welcome. Because I think there can be a misconception about the industry that, oh God, it's just a bunch of skinny chicks. And that is not true. And that is not helpful. And that is not just anything that is workable. So even with, it reflects in our team, it reflects in our clients, that all shapes, all sizes, all people, all walks of life are welcome in our stores. And this is a tenet that we do with our educators on the first day of training, where we say, here's the expectation. The expectation is that you welcome all people, all genders, all religions, all colors, all sizes, all ability levels, all the way down the line. If that's not for you, then this is not going to be a great fit. And one time I've had an educator leave training. One time I did, because it didn't align with the way that she saw the world. And that is such a powerful part of our culture, is that we stand with open arms to serve anyone who wants to move with us.
I was talking about this in an episode a while back, and we had a clip of it on social, and it was me saying, I think studio owners need to do a better job of that approach, and also reflecting it in their marketing. And their photography needs to show a wider range of people.
Yes.
It went viral, but not with teachers. It went viral with clients. And I must have had about 500 comments, all pretty much saying the same thing of, I'm a mid-sized person and I was made to feel really uncomfortable.
Yes.
Or I didn't even feel like I could go. I went back to every one of them and I said, please go somewhere else.
Yes.
Promise you,
You're
this
not
is
in the
not
right
what this
space.
industry,
No.
Pilates for me has always been everybody. And I don't know if it's a little bit different in the States, but for me, it's always felt like, and it was all about, I walked in and everybody looked a certain way and I didn't feel comfortable. But I think it's such an important message to get across, actually. That's why the at-home stuff's important too, because if you do really feel uncomfortable, let's find a way, and that might give you the confidence then to go into a studio.
And not only in your marketing, but also in who you hire. Who are you hiring? Who are you putting on the microphone? Who are you putting in front of the clients? Is it only one body type? Then stop talking about it, because you're not putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Amy, it has been an absolute joy to talk to you. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and all your story. What an inspirational story.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here with you and to meet you in person instead of just online friends.
I just loved the conversation with Amy. I hope you did too. She just had this beautiful energy. She came with a gift of this, Pilates ring that she's designed. It was so interesting to hear how she's kind of looked at the Pilates equipment and felt where she can change it or modify it. I love the at-home piece of equipment that she teased there. She did show me the drawings, which I'm not allowed to share with you, but I was like, I want one of those in my house for sure. And then I got to see her at the Pilates Journal Expo. She had a stand there. She just has this phenomenal positive energy that radiates deep from outside her. You know, one of those people that you meet, and I just loved getting to know her and finding out a little bit more about her story. So I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. Please tell your friends, tell your colleagues. I know you're all doing that, and we are growing at this crazy, crazy rate. And I'm so grateful, and it's wonderful to be here with you all. I will see you next week for another episode of Beyond the Reformer.